You don't believe it? No. Who doesn't believe it? You don't?
No, not at all.
It's probably with mirrors, huh?
Yuck. Scary.
Yeah. It is possible to walk on fire without hurting yourself.
Only if you're drunk.
This audience will be dismissed now. All right, doubting Thomas's all and Mrs. Thomas's. Tolly Burkan is here. You're a firewalking instructor. I'll tell you this. I don't know if you have children, but it's going to be rough for them when they have to announce what their daddy does in class. He's a firewalking instructor. You use firewalking in human potential seminars or courses. Pioneered these seminars in the United States from California. All the pioneering stuff comes from California. Don't worry, Chicago, listen, we'll be firewalking here any day now. What's the point, Mr. Burkan?
Well, the focus of the program is to teach people how to overcome fear, limiting beliefs, and also to show them how much control their mind has over their physical body.
Right.
And at the end of the evening, we demonstrate firewalking and invite anybody who's in the seminar to participate, and usually 80% to 100% of the people walk on the fire.
Yeah. Can I just go out and walk on the fire? Will I hurt myself, or do I have to go to classes and meetings and stuff before I do this?
It depends on the state of mind you're in when you're doing it.
I know this is complicated, and I appreciate it must be frustrating to have to narrow this down for media, but what is it that you help me do in order to do this?
What we do is we teach specific methods for overcoming fear, and we tell people after they see how simple the technique is for walking on the fire that all they have to do is overcome their fear of taking the first step. And so what we do is help people take the first step. And the practicality here is that next time you have to do something that stimulates fear in you, be it going to a job interview or asking for a raise, you'll remember what it was like taking that first step on the coal bed, and everything else seems simple by comparison.
I'd like to do what?
After the first step, what do they do, run?
Absolutely not. That's a good way to get burned, is to run. You just keep walking as if you're walking down the street.
Interesting.
You know.
Do I believe it? Not yet.
All right, here's the tape. You'll see the monitors up there. Can you see all right? Now, these are not performers or actors, and you know, we wouldn't deceive you. These aren't people with asbestos on their feet. Watch this. This is something. This is a seminar, I assume, somewhere in the West.
Yeah, there's the pyrometer measuring the coals. They're 1,236 degrees. That's Peggy, my wife. These are people from all different walks of life.
Watch this. I'll tell you, this woman wasn't born yesterday. Get out of here. Come on, you can do it. Go.
He's smiling.
Release your mind.
Hey, that's it. This is a good time to let out one big scream.
What do you think of that? What's the matter?
Why fire? Why not something that can also promote you to take a first step in a more normal way?
Well, because the idea is to overcome your fear. In other words, he's saying that if you can do this, it's amazing what else you can.
I'd never try it. I'm sorry.
A lot of the people who come at the beginning of the class, they say, I'm here to watch, I'll never do this. And then they wind up walking.
Why the chanting? Is that to help increase the sense of concentration?
If we don't have the chanting, people would just be chit-chatting on the side. And the chanting, it just creates a harmony among the group, and it's rather relaxing.
How many people have you actually had hurt themselves?
Out of over 10,000 people that I've taught, I've had 4 injuries.
Sometime before the hour's over, can we look at the bottoms of your feet?
That would be fine with me.
Yeah,
My wife said, wash your feet. They may ask you to show your feet.
Yeah, that gets about a 4.
Is there money involved in this? I mean, are you making money through this?
The course is $50.
How do you know when a person is ready, and what do you tell them to think about?
We tell people they have to look inside and see whether or not their guidance tells them not to walk or to walk. If there's a voice inside which is counseling you not to do this and advising you that if you do, you're liable to get burned, then honor that and then don't walk on the coals.
How long is the course?
4 hours.
What?
Well, 4 hours to...
How many hours you want? We'll give you 8.
No.
Couldn't do it. Andrew Weil joins us, MD. Dr. Weil is from the University of Arizona College of Medicine. This is a physician, a real, live, honest-to-goodness MD, who has written a number of books, including one titled Health and Healing. What interests you about this activity?
The mind-body interaction. I am a great believer in the principle that all disease is psychosomatic. Psychosomatic does not mean all in the head. In fact, the very word means mind-body. And I think that our kind of medicine has paid much too much attention to the body and has ignored the mind. That the body functions differently depending on the mental state you're in, and firewalking is a very dramatic example of that.
If we're blue, depressed, we are more likely to become physically ill, aren't we? Isn't that a fact?
I think that's a fact, and I think everyone knows that from their own experience. I think if we are beginning to see the ways in which stress produces physical illnesses of all kinds.
Right. If you think you're old at 48, pretty soon you're walking like this, wrong?
I think that's also the secret of beauty, by the way, that you are beautiful to the extent that you think you're beautiful.
But the point is, it's not only about inside your head. You actually do have a cosmetic payoff here.
And the body has a head. That's a very simple way of putting it.
Do you make people sign a disclaimer like we had to come into the show?
Yeah.
Yes.
You do. You get yourself out from under malpractice or lawsuits.
We tell people we have no insurance for firewalking, and people who think they have insurance, they better look at their insurance policies because I don't think there's any insurance for firewalking.
Well, what carryover is there? For instance, say you have a great fear of something and you go to this course and you're able to walk on coals.
Would you mind being personal with us? Do you have any phobias?
No, but I know a lot of people who are like afraid of death. After you have this experience of walking on coals, what carryover is there? Are you no longer afraid of death or illness? Or?
We ask people to write to us several months after they've walked on fire and tell us about changes in their lives. And we have gotten letters from people who have talked about improvements in their health, improvement in their relationships, improvement in their job, and we haven't gotten any negative feedback whatsoever.
Pearl
Only
Bennett
gotten
Atkins.
positive.
You're Miss Atkins. You are a psychotherapist from New York City. You see people and hope to help them live better lives and know who they are and all that other good stuff. And you're a fire-walking student. Pearl, I never thought I'd see the day when you'd be walking on. For what? Why did you do this?
Well, I'm a psychotherapist coming from a nursing background. And I also, as Dr. Weil, believe in a holistic way of looking at the mind-body relationship. And I felt I needed to stay a few steps ahead of my clients. And this was a very interesting few steps.
Do you have any anxieties? Does a psychotherapist have anxiety focus?
Yes,
really?
of
You should
course.
see a psychotherapist
That's
if you do.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would you be able to share with us how this, if at all, helped you?
Well, I feel that we all need to take risks to enhance our life experience. And we all have fears of height and fire, water, even just fear of living and dying. And going to this kind of workshop, I felt it would give me the risk that I needed to help my clients.
So there's apparently a real emotional liberation that goes with, I did it. And it tells you that, it apparently forces you to ask yourself, what other things am I not doing because I think I can, huh?
That's right.
Mark Rosen, senior editor, Parents Magazine. I'll tell you, you put that magazine on your coffee table with the cover facing up. This is a A highly regarded magazine's doing very well. New York, firewalking student, huh?
Yeah.
What are you doing walking around on fire, Mark?
Well, it came to me in a very strange way. I went out to the West Coast and I interviewed a publisher there just about what he might have that was of interest to Parents Magazine. And I'm also a writer and an editor myself. And he told me about Tolly Burkan, and he said Tolly wants to write a book about himself and his own spiritual unfoldment, kind of a spiritual and inspirational autobiography. Would you like to do it? And I said, well, I don't know. I've never done anything like that before. Yeah. And I read some of the notes that Tolly had taken for the book, and it talked about this thing called firewalking. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do this book, I should go to a seminar. Yeah. I've also been always a very frightened person myself. You know, you asked Pearl if she had any phobias. Every phobia in the book I've had, or I really have. I was raised in a Jewish home, which right away, you know, in that kind of a background, you know, you think that breathing is dangerous.
You mean because you had a mother who cared a lot and what? Involuntarily?
Passed on a lot of fears. You know, every time you'd walk out the house, they'd say goodbye because it might be the last time they'd ever see you again.
But those are always the ones that said, don't worry, don't worry.
Well,
you know, and then
I don't know, I've never heard the phrase, don't worry.
Well, maybe
I've heard the phrase, worry.
That's Irish Catholic, I think.
Worry.
That's all I heard. Don't worry. Listen, Philly, your show's going to be wonderful. Don't worry. 17 relatives told me not to worry. I started to worry.
They were right.
Okay, so what phobia, what anxieties then were you able to, without much time, could you give us some practice?
Yeah, well, for instance, I had always been afraid to exert myself, you know, because I'd read that people of any age could have a heart attack by running. So while there was this huge movement in jogging and physical fitness, I felt that even though I wasn't fit, I was afraid to even try to be fit because I thought I might drop dead in the process. And I went to the firewalk with my wife and with my son, who was at that time 17 years old. And when my son walked across the fire, I figured, well, I can too. And as a result of that, I've been involved in a gym program where I've, you know, haven't died. I've made phone calls that I was afraid to make. Are just par for the course now.
Yeah. You really did, it's like getting some constraints off.
Yes,
off.
yes.
Okay. Let's not miss Dr. Weil's point here. He is saying something very interesting, and his views are being shared by increasing numbers of physicians as well as lay folk. And that is, medicine has traditionally come after us from the outside to intervene, either with scalpels or drugs or whatever other bodily invasion is available. And we've come, I think, over the 20th century to believe that they fix us. Doctor, help me. Here I am. Do what you have to do. Dr. Weil steps forward to say, one, he thinks there's been too much surgery, too much invasion. He certainly believes in pathology. He knows that there is such a thing as sickness. But you think most of it comes from within. And so does most of the healing.
I think all healing comes from within. I think all that medicine can do from outside is to facilitate healing or remove obstacles to it or supply it with missing materials, but that power is within you. We're born with it.
Right. And this firewalking then to you is this is not a theatrical exercise. This is a demonstration of attitude and...
Right. And it's not, you know, I don't think this is something that everyone has to do. I think it's an example of something important that we can discover in other ways. But what it's an example of is very interesting. It is the ability to react differently to forces that we have been taught to believe are always injurious to us, whether it's germs, whether it's fire, whether it's whatever else we're afraid of. I don't think it works that way. I think things out there can hurt you to the extent that you let them. And there might be limits at any one time with temperature and fire and so forth, but you don't get infections because evil germs come and pounce on you. You get infections because you meet up with germs when you're in a susceptible state.
And that state is significantly determined by your emotional condition at the time.
Absolutely.
So if you really love the guy, it's not likely you're going to get sick on your honeymoon night.
That's one way of putting it.
Now, her Herpes is not something you get from a state of mind, however.
Ask anyone that has herpes, one of the factors that will trigger a herpes outbreak is sudden stress or anxiety.
Well, okay, but they've already got it. The pathology's there in the bloodstream.
Yeah, but the same thing, I think you get it because of being in a state like that, too. If your body defenses are in good order, they can resist meetings with germs.
I don't understand how in 4 hours fears that you've had for years and years could just go away in 4 hours.
Well, an interesting thing is that traditionally the approach has been, let's find out how you got to be this way. And so you can spend years and years trying to figure out how you got to be a certain way. But if you were shot with a poison arrow, you wouldn't stand there saying, now where did this come from? Did it come from the north or the south? The only thing you're interested in doing is getting it out. And what we've demonstrated after doing this with 10,000 people is that fears that have accumulated for a lifetime that you don't even know where they come from can be eliminated immediately just by setting the intention to do that.
This sounds like it's more or less a thing where you need, you know, therapy to follow. I'm the same way. I can't see this happening in 4 hours. It sounds, you know, as a doctor, are you applying this at all in you know, with patients and that? Are you trying to work more with this mind and body?
I see a lot of patients, and I work with all of them that way. And every patient that I see, whether it's a hardcore, I have seen a lot of cancer patients recently. And I hone right in on what are the psychosomatic dynamics of that illness, because often by looking in that direction, you see things that you can do, a change in a person's life that regular doctors haven't paid attention to, that for very little money and very little time, you can get big payoffs in terms of improvement.
Yeah. You know, if you get fired, you're at risk physically, aren't you? I mean, if it's something like that, a real punch in the nose.
That's one of the classic forms of stress that precipitates illness.
Hey, Phil?
Yeah.
Relevant to the question about can you overcome all your fears in 4 hours, it's not really that you overcome all the fears forever. It's that you get into a state of a sense of your own power to the point where you believe you can walk across the fire. You take the first step, as Tolly said, and then when you do it, you say, my God, look what I've been able to do. And in other situations where you are afraid, where the fear comes up, you remember that. So that the process of fighting that fear continues, but you come from a point of view of strength and knowing your own potential.
Did your feet hurt?
No, it was, I actually said to, you know, people said to me, are they going to ask you to walk on fire on the show? I said, I hope so. I've been looking forward to doing it again.
So you're saying that, say I was going to do an audition for a commercial or take something back to a store and I'd be nervous. Should I walk on fire first? I mean, does that depend on the person? You know, I mean, take that session?
Well, it helped me to do all kinds of things, as I said, that I was afraid to do first. But if you can get that sense of power on your own without walking on fire, that's fine too.
Okay. I should mention that the techniques that we teach people, how to overcome fear and limiting beliefs, we've put them in a book called Guiding Yourself into a Spiritual Reality. People can read the book in the comfort of their home and use the methods. But some people would like to put themselves in a position where they have a real challenge and see if they can use the methods to the extreme. And once they've walked on fire, every other fear becomes a footnote.
We have a lot of questions for all of you in this audience, and we'll get to them in just a moment. That woman was quite literally walking on fire. It's a therapeutic device that's used by Tolly Burkan in a number of seminars that he conducts around the country. The idea is to apparently encourage you to voluntarily make the decision. There's no force or anything. One of the points he's making is that once you do it, you begin to apparently sense that what you were afraid of wasn't, the fear wasn't necessary, and if you can get past that, you can get rid of lots of other fears. Thank goodness you don't have any fears at all. You're just as welcome.
I got to get rid of it.
I was wondering, is there a benefit in doing this in a group situation? You know, with the chanting and everything. Do people do it one-on-one? Have you done it, or do they always do it in a group? Is there something you get from other people?
I've done it one-on-one. I've done it with just 4 or 5 people. I don't think that it changes anything, whether you're in a large group or by yourself.
But I think one of the greatest pushes in the direction of seeing that you can do it is just being in the presence of other people doing it. In fact, all the instruction really is irrelevant to that point. When you see somebody you know doing it, then that's a great, well, gee, then you can do it too. That's a person.
Well, perhaps you don't get any pain, but are you saying that on the bottoms of your feet that you don't get blisters and it's not red and sore?
I got blisters and it hurt. Some of the and that was no big deal. You know, they went away, it was fine. I'd say I had invited Tolly to give one of his seminars at my house, and we had about 70 people there, including 20 medical students from the University of Arizona. And about 2/3 of them walked. And of those, most, I think, had the experience of having some blisters, which lasted for a few days, and everyone was proud of their blisters. A few people, though, experienced the fire as being cold and crunchy and had no marks on their feet. And that's very interesting. You know, I'd like to know what's happening there.
It's an interesting thing, too, because when we have a group and no blisters appear, people walk away thinking the fire wasn't hot enough.
Do you find that most of the people just do it the one time, or is this something you do once a week?
Kind of before you shower in the morning, you know?
If you do it just once, the effect is so profound, you probably would never have to do it again. Although we have people who come back and do it again and again and again because they just love the experience.
I'm just wondering if you charge them $50 to do it every time.
We have a repeater's price that's lower.
We have a very cynical audience here on the dining. Yeah.
I understand the people with no blisters on their feet. Do you ever have people that go like to a 10-story building and think they can jump off of it because nothing's going to break or anything like that?
I've never come up against that situation, no.
Well, isn't this like self-hypnosis when you teach yourself to do these kinds of things and then it doesn't matter what you do?
What it does is it shows you that your mind has a lot of power over your body. I think the same thing which is responsible for firewalking is also responsible for remissions of cancer, the 90-pound grandma who lifts the car off of her trapped grandchild. We don't understand all of the laws of the universe yet, but we're starting to see more and more evidence of these laws being challenged.
I'd like to ask the doctor, you said that you saw cancer patients. How do you teach cancer patients to, you know, have their mind over their body when they've got a disease that's literally eating their body alive?
Well, first of all, you have to create for them the possibility that that disease can change, because until you believe that something is possible, you're never going to experience that way. That's the same thing with firewalking. As long as you believe that it's impossible for somebody to do this, you're never going to experience that way. But in fact, on record, there are many cases of dramatic remissions of even very advanced cancers in very short spaces of time. Now, I think what happens there is that the immune system suddenly wakes up to the fact that the cancer shouldn't be there. And that's really the mystery of cancer, is why our immune systems don't deal with it. The immune system is very much under the control of the nervous system. So that's always a possibility.
And the nervous system is activated in many ways, including our own emotional condition.
It's connected to the mind. So once you see that that's so, that's scientific fact, then there is a possibility that you can believe in. So that's the first step.
Do you feel that the next century, the 21st century, I assume you feel that the 21st century will have far fewer surgical procedures than this century?
I think we will look back on medicine in this century with our mouths hanging open at the crudity of our techniques and at how much we didn't see and at all the natural, simple things that can be activated to deal with disease. I think this will look very crude from the point of view of the next century.
Right. You turn the head of more than one traditional physician when you say that. This, I assume you feel, is part of the problem, that we have been conditioned to think of invasion as remedial.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that also the causes are out there, like germs, so that all of our efforts with infectious disease should be focused on finding new chemicals to deal with germs rather than on strengthening natural resistances.
What?
Isn't hypnosis a unnatural part of it?
Unnatural?
Yes.
Oh, it's supremely natural. We all go into trances all the time to one degree or another. When we watch movies, when we watch television, it's a natural process.
At one time I had knee surgery and the doctors told me I could never be active again. I was quite active in athletics. And today I play racquetball tennis and nothing bothers me.
What do you attribute that to?
I don't allow myself to pay attention to it. I go out and do it.
I've done a lot of
the orthopedic guys out there saying, now, if the doctor was here, he'd say he's very happy for you. All right, but there are other physicians out there, orthopedic people certainly, who would say, if everybody believes that, you're going to make it work, huh? What does it matter?
Oh, mind over matter. That's what we're talking about,
Do
right?
you believe it?
Do I believe it? Do I positively. And I have to tell you one other thing, that I also believe, you hear of disease. It's a state of a mind that's not at ease. When you believe in negatives, believe in the positive, wipe out the negatives.
When you get a cold, it's because you're depressed.
Possibly. Question.
I've done a lot of research on the subject of firewalking, and just recently they've discovered there's a network of glands in the brain that release chemicals they've called Neuro Peptides. These neuropeptides affect the chemistry of the brain, and of course the whole chemistry of the body is affected by that. And now what they're noticing is that these chemicals are released in response to the thoughts that you run through your mind. So they can actually see evidence now where a person who's thinking positive thoughts is changing their body chemistry one way, a person thinking negative thoughts is changing their body chemistry another way. Now, a doctor in Texas, every time he tells his patient that they have cancer, he also says, I'm going to introduce you to several people who have had the exact same cancer as you, and they have all fully recovered. And the statistics show that more of his patients recover from cancer than any other doctor in the nation.
This is a very dramatic way to come about a positive way of thinking. Why does it take this heavy drama? I mean, it's very dramatic to walk on fire. Why that? Why did you choose that?
Just because it is something so indelible that you're not likely to forget it as long as you live.
Where can someone connect with a fire walking workshop?
Right in your backyard. Get the coals out.
We have a toll-free number. People can call 800-227-3900 from any place in the country and receive information by mail on
I never thought I'd hear an 800 number for firewalking?
I think you can make it.
You think what?
I think you can make it.
I think you could make it. How do you mean? You think you can? Well, there's no. I don't think anybody's doubting that.
I think you can make it, though.
Walking across the fire.
Yeah, as they were doing on the screen.
You can make it.
It doesn't seem that bad, though. It's for a short time.
Yeah, would you not, though, recommend this for kids who would be watching the show to, try this out?
I would tell anybody watching the show, child or otherwise, not to just go out and do this without preparation or supervision. And I should also mention that we've had a lot of children do this with us as young as 4 years old.
In the company of their parent.
I would like to know how you came up with this method as far as overcoming your fears, and also what were the people saying when they were chanting?
They were saying, release your mind, meaning don't keep it so small. Let it expand. See what you find. Bring it on home to your people. That's what they were chanting.
Yeah. Okay. Don't miss the point now. This is not about firewalking as much as it is about what they believe to be our ability to do lots of... We are preventing ourselves from doing things because of fears that are manufactured and have been given to us, which are, what do you think? We'll be back in a moment. Health and Healing, Understanding Conventional and Alternative Medicine, Dr. Andrew Weil. Dr. Weil, you may recall, who's to forget that beard? Isn't that something? That's what I'm going to have in my next life, a beard like that. Dr. Weil has also written another book titled Chocolate to Morphine, in which he calls our attention to the fact that a lot of things, foodstuffs which we consume daily, as a matter of fact, contain, what?
Drugs.
Not chocolate.
Drugs.
Chocolate.
Chocolate is a stimulant related to caffeine. It has a drug in it called theobromine. Some people are very sensitive to it and can affect their mood and behavior. It can be addicting.
I don't want anybody flying my airplane eating chocolate up there. Yeah. What else? What other things are you calling our attention to in this book? I just want you to
placebo responses, which medicine has dismissed. I mean, medicine regards them as nuisances that they try to screen out in experiments.
They're one half of a double-blind experiment. So,
right,
so
but,
in that sense,
but that's the good half, as far as I'm concerned, because they're the pure. That's pure healing from within. That's unmixed up with the direct effects of medications, which are likely to be toxic. So it seems to me that the art of medicine is finding out how to elicit better and better placebo responses more and more reliably with gentler and gentler methods.
Yes.
Hi, we're basically talking about mind over body. Okay, we can relate it to natural childbirth. I can't really say that I'm any stronger and can overcome anything more than since then, put it that way.
Did you have it?
Yes.
Did it work?
Yes, but I can't stand to have a sliver even taken out now.
But the point is, your natural childbirth experience helped you. It worked. There was minimum discomfort. Is that how we want to say it? I don't know.
Yes, definitely so. Body.
You can almost do anything. You can walk on glass. It's the same idea. Whatever you think fully, you're just tuned in. You can do it yeah, definitely.
Only with Lamaze.
I had Lamaze too. I had no drugs, nothing. It was simple.
What we're demonstrating is that your beliefs control your experience of life. That's basically what we're demonstrating.
Well, you know, you hear stories about people who have gone through a torture where somebody says, I'm going to touch you with this hot iron and it's going to burn, and they actually touch them with an ice cube, and they don't feel cold, they feel fire.
And get a blister.
Right.
Also.
Yeah.
Okay, since you guys been walking on hot coals, have you ever gotten sick or had the flu or ever been really deathly sick with the mind over, body?
Yeah, look, it is not a miracle cure for anything, and you still have to do a lot of work and a lot of practice. It's just a very dramatic example of showing you that things are not always as you believe, and a lot of the limitations we accept in ourselves are not from genuine experience, but just from things that people have told us, that we've picked up and have never really tested.
You just mentioned that chocolate, caffeine, those kind of products have an effect on your mood and therefore on your mind. I have a problem with chocolate and all of those. Well, how do I make my mind control my body to the point that those things don't affect me?
Yeah. Well, it's very nice. It's not easy, but it's very nice to be able to regulate your moods without taking external chemicals. That's not easy because we've grown up in a culture that encourages the use of many of these drugs. I think it takes practice and also takes retraining your beliefs to realize that when you feel good moods, really what's happening is that your nervous system is reacting differently. All those good feelings come from you, come from inside. They didn't come in the chocolate.
Right. Mr. Rosen wanted to make what point? Now, you're the senior editor of Parents Magazine, and you've already established for us that you have walked on fire. Well, so what, Mr. Rosen? Tell us one of the so whats, or you wanted to get in here.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. One is that to clarify what Tolly was saying, that nobody should do this without a trained firewalking instructor. And Tolly's trained a lot of people to give those workshops. And that the purpose of the whole thing is not only to help you overcome fear, but to give you a sense in your life of the positive atmosphere that you can create for yourself in your life. And Dr. Weil was talking about moods and about how our minds can control our moods if we learn how to do that. I think that once you find out that your fear doesn't have to control you, then you begin to have a sense of the joy that you can create in your life on a daily basis.
Mr. Bergman, I was wondering, who taught you how to do this? Where'd you learn it?
A friend of mine very casually mentioned to me that she had walked on fire. And I wanted to do it myself. I said, show me. I went and I built a fire, and she showed me, and then I did it. And in that split second, I knew my whole life had just been changed. And at the time, nobody was teaching firewalking to the general public.
Yeah.
And I decided that
I'm glad she didn't tell you that she just had a baby.
So I wanted,
go ahead. You had an important point to make.
I wanted to share this with as many people as I possibly could because it was so valuable for me. When you have something that valuable and you receive it as a gift, you want to pass it on. Yeah. And that was my intention, and that's what I've been doing.
Okay, why fire? Why not something else? Why does it have to be fire?
Water's harder.
You can, if it's, okay, if it's mind over matter, you can, why not walk on water or something like that? Why does it have to be?
It's just what presented itself at the time.
Yeah. You're not saying everything is possible. You're saying, is that so? You're saying a lot of things are possible that we don't appreciate.
Also, firewalking is within human experience. It's done all over Asia. It's done in Greece. It's done in Spain, usually as part of religious festivals. So there's a lot of evidence around that this is within the realms of human experience. Yeah. There are other things that I don't know that that's so for. Yeah.
I know that this kind of experience has really been around to the world for centuries. And I'm wondering, what do you think it is about, quote, modern times, unquote, that's made this lost, by and large, to the Western world? I think, by and large, people are afraid of their power. I think that people need to find external causes and external solutions.
But a more interesting question is, why suddenly is this beginning to appear? You know, I thought I was going to have to go off to Asia to see this, and it materialized in my living room.
I think people are becoming disillusioned with many technological
So
advancements.
that's an interesting and I think very hopeful time.
Really hoping to find the spirit of human life again.
We are taking our health responsibility back onto ourselves. That's an interesting point.
Also, today, more than ever before, I think people are starting to realize the power that our beliefs have over our lives. And people want to see more and more evidence of this, and that's why they're seeking doctors who deal with alternative medicine. That's why they come to firewalking workshops.
And we'll be back in a moment. Tolly Burkan's book is titled Guiding Yourself into a Spiritual Reality. Now, let's get this straight here. Nobody's pretending to have all the answers here. And while it is true, we went through a period in the 60s. Remember, everybody's jumping into hot tubs and, you know, feel good, and it made a lot of traditional, hard-working, middle-class, tax-paying Americans a little crazy. We do resist change, and I suppose you've had your share of criticism, Dr. Weil. I mean,
The medical profession is not known for its open-mindedness to new ideas.
You know, birdseed and yoga and all that stuff makes them crazy. These are, I guess, just names we call people who, deep down in, we maybe feel a little threatened by. You know, how much, are you talking how many billions of dollars a year in the healthcare industry? If we can get all those, think about the consequence of the reduction in surgical procedures, for example.
But you know who's in back of this suddenly is insurance companies and corporations who begin to realize that the economics of the current system don't work, so that it's in everybody's interest to support preventive techniques and simpler measures. That's a big change.
Can you lose weight like this?
Yes.
You think so? You think you could? I mean, could you imagine yourself thin? And I don't know. I'm asking.
In holistic health, you can. Working with clients, giving acupressure treatments, they have been able to lose weight and control diets, nutrition.
You support that, do you, Doctor?
I think that calories do count and they don't count. That to some extent, the state of mind determines how you metabolize food. Exactly. And I think everybody has experienced that.
I think you want to say something more positive about that. Do you, Tolly?
Well, I wanted to add that if you want to lose weight, I don't think you can just say, I want to lose weight. You have to have an experience of being thin, knowing right down to the ounce. How much do you want to weigh? Actually visualize yourself wearing the clothes that you want to be wearing. And this way you're taking your mind and you're charging your whole body up with the exact experience that you want to create for yourself. And I think that if you do that before you start the diet, it will be more effective.
Oh, I could never walk on those hot coals. I can't do that. It'll burn my feet. And I do it. And I say, hey. Similarly, if I say, oh, I could never be thin, I'm always going to be, buy a wardrobe size 6 and imagine yourself in it. Is this part of what
First imagine yourself, then buy the wardrobe.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, what are your ultimate goals? Would you like to see the coal of bed in various spas throughout the United States? Or, you know, what are you really after?
What I want is for people everywhere to start realizing they can take responsibility for creating the life they want for themselves. Most people feel like they're victims, that they're being affected by situations and circumstances, and what I want people to realize is that they can take responsibility for the quality of their lives, even the quality of their health, right down to saying, here's how much I want to take home at the end of each week, instead of just complaining that you're not getting paid enough.
The doctor, I was just interested, are you a practicing physician, and where?
Yes, in Tucson, Arizona.
What type of...
General practice. Anything's fair
Prescribe
game.
more than, you know, head medicine instead of...
I do regular, I sometimes give prescriptions, I sometimes give herbal medicine, I sometimes send people to other kinds of practitioners, I sometimes just talk with people. Anything, whatever works.
If adults want to do this, I think it's their right, but I think it's cruel to send a 4-year-old kid across coals.
We never send children across the coals.
While you answer that question, I'm sorry, Mr. Burkan, let's show this again. For those of you who joined us late, here is the tape which so astounded our audience earlier on. These are citizens, that is to say, not professional people, but folks who have joined a seminar under the tutelage of Tolly Burkan, who's with us. They are people who have never walked on fire. They've been encouraged, or at least told, that it's possible, it can be done, and they do it. The point here is that it liberates them from a fear that was unnecessarily held. And it suggests to them that if I can do this, what else can I do? Not everybody proceeds, as you'll see here.
You know,
I'm with you. I'm with that woman.
Regarding children doing it, we tell parents never to encourage their children. Parents can't say to their child, it's easy, I did it, see? The child has to make their own choice. If a child is present for the course, yes. In fact, when children walk, they never get blisters. We have adults who sometimes get blisters. Children don't get blisters because children are using an entire different thought process than the adults, apparently. And we've never had a child get burned, ever.
This is about fears. I want to know if, my biggest fear is that my 2.5-year-old won't commit suicide later on. I'm wondering if my fears will be reflected on him. Can I cause anything by my fears of him taking drugs or whatever? Are my fears
How
going to
could
be...
they not be reflected on him? I mean, how could they not be?
And they also are reflecting on you, because obviously they're making you feel lousy right now because you're living in that state of fear.
Positive, then he'll be okay.
And you'll also be improving your own experience of life.
But something as consequential or something as serious or distracting as this is going to require a little work on her part.
Absolutely. She's going to have to work within her own mind and contradict those fears. Say to yourself, shut up. When the fears come, just say, shut up. I'm not paying attention to that. That's not true.
And we'll be back in just a moment. You want to see his feet, don't you? It's been a while since we've had a call for bare feet on our program. Well, what do you think? It's up to you, Tolly.
Sure.
How many times have you walked on fire?
I have walked hundreds and hundreds. Last month I walked about 15 times. So this is a foot that's walked. The longest I've walked is 25 feet.
It does look kind of orange, you know?
Does it?
Let me see. It's a normal foot from the medical point of view.
Now, what kind of thoughts go through your mind as you're walking over these hot coals?
Say it again, I couldn't hear you.
Can we get the doctor? What did you think of when you did it? I mean, what went through your mind?
Oh, well, it was very warm. I walked across. It gave me, I thought, a couple of little blisters, but then the next day there was nothing. My feet were perfectly normal.
I just want to know how you would incorporate that into your practice.
How do you bring that home to your patients, that experience?
Well, it shows me that I took a risk that was very frightening. And I offer that for my clients, to take the risk of living for the next day, the next week, the next year, because they have so many fears. They just fear life.
It smacks of cultism somehow to me. Is there any religion tied to this? Or?
I think that the key phrase for me to this is human potential. That what it's really about is it's one way of exploring the potential that all of us have to be more than we think. And of course there's a sense of the miraculous in it, because there's a sense of divinity about life.
Forgive me for being quite skeptical, but never having lived in California, I always look upon it as being the land of entrepreneurs. I mean, you've had the Mark Eden bus developer, quick developers, and you've had the Cambridge diet, quick weight loss, and now you...
Cambridge diet comes from the Northeast, so let's lay everything on California.
Okay, but these quick things, the 4-hour sessions, and everything seems to be quick. Does it appeal to mostly Californians? Is that mainly the people?
No, I do this all over the country.
You think California's different?
It's a different culture from what
I've done this in Europe, and interestingly enough, the type of person who comes crosses just every boundary you can think of, from teachers, housewives, professionals.
I'm almost out of time.
You mentioned that 4 got hurt. How badly were they hurt?
3rd-degree burns. And in the beginning, we learned as we went along. Now there's very little risk at all, because we've done it so many times that we know what to do and what not to do. But in the beginning, we were pioneers.
I'd just like to know, the person that taught you how to firewalk, did she charge you $50?
Boy, they're hung up with the $50. Hey, come and walk on fire for what?
That's $500,000. What did you do before? I want to know what he did before, though.
That doesn't make him wrong to charge.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to know what he did before.
Yeah, I don't know. What did you do before?
I've been a teacher in the human potential movement since 1973, writing books and lecturing.
And you...